So in week 8, I'd like to explore how I think meditation can help relationships. This big aspect of our lives sometimes goes well, often doesn't. We've got relationships, obviously significant romantic relationships, maybe with a partner or a spouse. Many of you have children, or you have parents, we have family members, we have colleagues, we've got neighbors, and there's our extended communities. There are all these people that we have these interactions with. So I don't just mean relationships from a romantic point of view, but I'm going to start there and tell this slightly embarrassing story that some of you have heard before, from about 31 years ago. And it is extraordinary how the mind works and memory works. I can't remember somebody's name about 15 seconds after they've told me, but there are certain events from our lives where we can remember them in quite a lot of detail. And there is one morning, one set of 10 minutes really, from over 30 years ago that I remember in tremendous detail. Because I met a girl. I was at university. It was start of my second year. And there was suddenly all this chat around the university about this girl. She was in a different college than I was, but everybody had met her, had fallen madly in love with her, and I hadn't met her, and I couldn't wait to meet her. I mean, fascinated to meet this extraordinary person. I was imagining they must look like some kind of supermodel and be super charming and funny and clever, all this kind of stuff. And she'd been pointed out to me at a distance. So I'd seen her at a distance, and I could tell she was tall and slightly sort of Scandinavian looking, but I didn't really see in detail until there was this morning. It was a crisp autumn morning in October. Sunny, but not that warm. And I saw her on the other side of the street talking to a friend of mine. So this was my in. So I made my way across the street and introduced myself to my friend, who was not thrilled to see me because he was talking to this girl. Anyway, he was polite enough to introduce me. I pretended I had no idea who she was. And we made a little bit of chit-chat. Just nothing special. Which college are you at? What are you studying? How are you enjoying Cambridge? Where were you before? Blah, blah, blah. Nothing great. And as I'm talking to her, I have no idea what all the fuss is about. She's pretty, but not stunning. Kind of averagely dressed. I mean, she's well put together, but nothing stylish particularly. She's not particularly witty or funny, or she doesn't have anything particularly intelligent to say. We're just idle chit-chat. And I'm like sort of maybe slightly disappointed and also slightly relieved. I haven't fallen under the spell like everybody else. And then it's, we've had our little chit-chat and it's time to go, and we all make our excuses and we walk away. And as I walk away, I literally almost can't stand up. Because out of the blue, I suddenly realize I am madly in love with this girl. What did she do? And it wasn't just to me, it was to everybody who met her. She sort of had this extraordinary skill. And we had some theories. Some of them involved her being a witch or something like that. But, and that was not accurate, I don't think. I mean, she might have been, I don't know. But I don't think that was it. We had some other theories. Turns out some of them were, I think, correct. But I didn't really work it out until many, many years later. Until I was on a meditation retreat just a few years ago. Now, on a meditation retreat, it's some of you have probably been on one, but for those of you who haven't, it's a very special and weird circumstance whereby you're in silence more or less solidly for some long period of time, anywhere from like a long weekend to 30 days or longer even. In my case, I think it was about a 10-day retreat. So we were in silence for about 10 days. And it's tough. I mean, it's sort of like quarantine, except no Netflix. You don't talk to anybody. You make no eye contact with anybody. And so you're just alone with yourself, which is as awful as it sounds. You just with your mind, with all of the beauties of your mind and all of the horrors of your mind. It's just you're in this little pressure cooker with your own thoughts, your own mind, and you're trying to do the meditation, but the mind keeps coming in. And one of the things that happens is you generally spend a lot of time sitting in a meditation hall, sitting next to the same people. And most of them you don't notice. But there are some that you do, because people are people. And some people have certain habits that, if you're like me, they can get under your skin. So one of the people sitting next to me was a relatively young lady. And she was just one of those people who, she just spread into the space that was available. So she had a lot of stuff. I mean, basically you just have a cushion that you're sitting on, but there are blankets in case you get cold, and then there are extra cushions in case you're uncomfortable. And she would bring cough sweets and sweaters and all sorts of stuff. So there's all this stuff, and it just sort of encroach into one space. And you'd be in the middle of a meditation. You'd actually be finding a little bit of peace and calm, and you'd be finding some of this incredible stillness that is available on these retreats. And then all of a sudden she'd unwrap a cough sweet and start biting down on it, and just all of my intolerance would come to the fore, which is part of the meditation retreat experience. So anyway, so I had this interesting ongoing battle in my mind with this person sitting next to me. And it's, you just, that's part of it, is you just come face to face with your own intolerances and discover what's really going on there. Anyway, so the meditation retreat comes to an end. And at the end of it, they do this exercise. They don't always do this, but they did it this time, where you haven't spoken in many days. So you're going to go back into the normal world and have to go back to talking. And they want you to at least sort of warm up to this, because just in case you're a little bit bonkers or something. And so they set up this exercise whereby you're paired up with the person sitting next to you. And the way the numbers worked out and the way the seats were, it just ended up that I, of course, I am going to be paired up with the lady with all the stuff and all the cough sweets and everything else. Anyway, I sort of raised my eyebrows and, going to get on with it. I have never spoken to her before in my life. I have no idea what she's actually like or anything like that. I just know that she's a bit of a space person. Anyway, they've set up this exercise so that one person is going to take it in turns to talk. And you're just going to answer a simple question like, what are you going to try and take away from this meditation with you into the rest of your life going forward? And you get 3 minutes to talk, and the other person has to listen. And then the other person's going to get to talk, and you get to listen. But in this case, they set up the exercise in a very specific way, whereby the person who's listening is really going to have to listen. Because at the end of the 3 minutes, they're going to have to repeat back as close to word for word exactly what they heard. And the rules are very specific insofar as you don't have to remember everything, but they don't want you to try and interpret anything. So it's not what I think you said or what I think you meant at all, or that reminds me of. No. All you were going to do was try to repeat back exactly the words used, as many of them as you can remember. So you really have to listen. And we spent 10 days in silence, at which point, somewhere along the line, you do get some stillness and the mind is less. It's still active, but it doesn't have control over you quite as much when you spent that much time dealing with it. You just kind of get bored of it, really, and it sort of lets go of its hold for a while. So it's still there, but it's not holding you in quite the same way as it normally does. So you're able to really pay attention to what this person's saying. So it's interesting. So she goes first. She talks and I'm listening. And I do my best to try and repeat back word for word what she said. And then it's my turn to talk. So I tell her what I've gained from this. And then it's her turn to repeat back to me what she's heard. And she, doesn't get it all right. She doesn't remember every single word, but it's pretty close. It's pretty amazing how much she's really listened to me. She's really paid attention, and she's got a lot of the words right, and she really clearly, and there is evidence that she really paid attention and really listened. And I find myself falling madly in love with this person that I know I don't even like. So what gives? And I think it is simply that when you are truly heard, when somebody really pays attention, really listens to you, there's this incredible moment of connection and intimacy, which is very powerful. And I think this girl in Cambridge, she just had this incredible skill, whether she'd worked at it or whether it was a natural for her, but she just listened to what you had to say, and she seemed to be really interested in what you had to say. She wasn't trying to interject with what she had to say. She wasn't being particularly charming or witty or impressive in any way. None of those things. She just seemed fascinated by what you had to say. And she was curious, and she would ask follow-up questions, and she was really listening. And that was so rare. And the truth is, we all want that. We all want this connection. We all want this friendship, connection, intimacy. We want to feel connected to each other. But we go about it in completely the wrong way usually. We go about it by trying to talk, to get people interested in us, to tell funny stories, to tell impressive stories, to tell people how important we are, what clever we are, what funny we are, to be relevant, in the idea that if they are impressed with us, or if they find us funny or entertaining, or they like us, then we'll create the connection. The thing is, everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's talking. And when somebody else is talking, we're not really listening. We're waiting for our segue, whereby we can talk. We're looking for a hook. They'll tell a story, and then we'll tell a more interesting story. And if their story goes on a bit too long, we're not listening at all to what they're saying. We're just judging them and wondering, when are they going to shut up? Why haven't they noticed that nobody's interested? So this listening thing, it's powerful. Very powerful. So, okay, great. So we listen. Okay, Justin, I can listen. I'll listen. But here's the thing. It turns out listening's really, really hard. You might think, oh, no, I can listen. I'm listening to you right now, Justin. Sort of, when I'm not looking at other screens. Yeah, I know you think you can listen, but I can prove to you that you're not very good at listening. And it is simply that when you meditate and you try and place your attention on something, you say to your mind, okay, I'm going to pay attention to my breathing. We're no good at it. We're terrible at it. The mind almost immediately wants to go somewhere else, and it doesn't even have any distractions. All it has is your breathing, and yet it finds all of these things to take your attention away. It's going to grab hold of anything and everything that it thinks you ought to be thinking about instead of just paying attention to your breathing. So when somebody's talking, it's that much harder, even than just paying attention to the breathing, because as they're talking, every word they're saying is an opportunity for your mind to jump off in a different direction. Everything they're saying will spark some thought in your head, or as they're talking, you're evaluating it, you're judging it, you're deciding whether you like it, you don't like it, you agree with it, you disagree with it, what it makes you think of them. Your mind is jumping in all sorts of different places while you're sort of listening. And you are sort of listening, probably. You probably get the gist of what they're saying. But you absolutely know the difference between somebody sort of listening to you and somebody really listening to you. And of all the friends you've got, or of all the people you know, maybe you have hundreds of friends on Facebook, or maybe you even have thousands of friends on Facebook. But if I ask you to name who's really good at listening, you probably know one or two people, but probably only one or two people come to mind. Because it's really rare and it's really difficult because our mind's all over the place. Somebody's telling you a story about maybe they went to the supermarket and this funny thing happened. And immediately you're like, oh, supermarket. Oh, yeah, I've got to go. I forgot to get kitchen roll last time. I wonder if they have kitchen roll. Oh, and I wonder if they have chicken. I haven't seemed to get any chicken for ages. Your mind is gone. Like right now. I'm guessing your mind has gone. And you're thinking about the supermarket and what they didn't have and what you need to get. Because that's what the mind does. It's very useful. It's always trying to be more useful. It doesn't rest. It doesn't focus. It doesn't concentrate. So now we know how difficult it is. And I know you think you're good at fake listening, but you know when somebody's fake listening. And so do they. And they don't call you out on it. You don't call other people out on it when they're fake listening. It's just not what's socially acceptable. We don't say, oi, listen to me. That would be considered egotistical or rude or something like that. So we talk and hope that some of it got through, and then they talk. And we wait until we can talk. So we love listening. It's how we create connection. But it's really hard. Nevertheless, it is a skill you can learn. And people teach it, and they teach active listening, and they sort of say, oh, pay attention, active listening. It's not going to work. I know it's not going to work. It's nice advice. Sounds good. But you're not giving people the skills to be able to hold focus, notice when they've lost focus, and bring the focus back again. And that's sort of the key. And that's what we're learning in meditation. If I can remind you of some time when you started dating somebody, you fell in love, like a nice early romance. And there's that incredible feeling of connection when you first meet somebody that you like. And everything you say, they're fascinated by. They're really listening. And everything they say, you're fascinated by. And you're really listening. And you're really interested. You're really curious. And you want to know about this person. And you're paying attention. And you have this incredible connection and you fall in love. And then the feeling goes away. And they're talking and you're like, oh yeah, I've heard this before. I know how the punchline ends. And so you stop listening. Or you've got something more important to do. Or you're taking them for granted and you know they're talking, but really is it that important? And the thing is that you haven't lost the feeling and therefore you're not listening. You're not listening and therefore you've lost the feeling. So the reason we get that feeling in the first place is by that intimate connection of really paying attention. And we can get it back. Now, I'm not saying you have to listen all the time to everything, but you can. Through meditation, you can develop this skill of paying attention, noticing when your mind has gone somewhere else, and then re-paying attention.